going on, everyone? Welcome to Vlogmas Day 4, and today we're going to be doing a book wrap-up in TBR, which is to be read. So I'm going to be wrapping up what the books I read in October and November, and then I'm going to be talking about some of the books I'm going to be reading up in December. So strap yourselves in, get ready. I'm going to give some brief thoughts on the books I read, and if you guys want to read the full review, you guys can go to author.anthonyavina.tumblr.com. The link for that, for my blog, is down below in the description box. Without further ado, here is my October and November book wrap-up and my December TBR. The first book I'm going to be talking about is Dead by Morning by Kayla Krantz. This is definitely more of an adult book, I would say. You know, late teens, early 20s kind of book. You know, what I think of this book, well, first let me give you a brief description. It's about obsession. It's about a young woman, a young girl in high school named Luna Ketz, who is very pessimistic, doesn't really socialize very well with a lot of students, but soon she finds herself caught in a web of lies and deceit when she becomes the target of obsession of a very popular high schooler named Chance. And she soon learns he has a deadly secret, and he is not what everyone thinks he is. I thought this was a very fun read, very dark and brutal, but a very good first novel. At least I believe it's the first novel from a up-and-coming author in Kayla Krantz. Very well written, very well described. The setting is beautifully described in this book. The setting is one of the best parts of the book, in my opinion. It really sets the tone and atmosphere for the story. But the darkness and Chance kind of reminds me of a character I wrote called Lisa Etron from I Was a Teenage Killer, I Was a Teenage Zombie, and I Was a Teenage Demon. The whole I Was an Evil Teenager series that I wrote. You know, evil doesn't always look evil. Sometimes evil wears a beautiful face, and I think that's a great way to sum up this book. So if you guys like stories like that, it's definitely a horror thriller. Go check it out. Next, I'm going to be talking about Satan's Beckoning, which is a book I read through Book Lover Cat Lady Publicity. This is the second in the DCI Mason and David Carlisle adventure. This was from Michael K. Foster. Let me read you the synopsis. A fatal road crash turns out to be a murder. Jack Mason is sent in to investigate. Within the seemingly dark vaults of the police missing persons file lay untold dangers. Young women are easy pickings for a serial killer. So, I'll leave it at that. They have to investigate. There's another serial killer involved. This one's much darker, much more gruesome than the Wharf Butcher. Definitely a different set of inspirations between the killers. I had the pleasure of interviewing Michael K. Foster. If you guys want to read that, you can go to my blog as well, down in the description box. It was an email interview, and it went very well, and he gives you all sorts of interesting insight, but this is definitely a police serial killer thriller kind of book. Satan's Beckoning, definitely a lot darker and a lot more personal, I believe, for David Carlisle, the main protagonist in the book. It was definitely a fun read. I would highly recommend it. Now, the next two books were children's books. I don't read children's books very often, but I was asked by an author friend of mine named Ben Jackson to give these a look, and he wrote these with a man named Sam Lawrence. The books are called The Day My Fart Followed Me Home and The Day My Fart Followed Me to Hockey. I will say these are beautifully illustrated. I think these are great kid stories. I believe they're something that parents can bond over with their children. They're fun, they're silly, but it does have a good story. Basically, whatchamacallit, it's a story about a young boy named Timmy and how he meets a new friend. And I'll just leave it at that. They're good children's stories is all I really have to say. Beautifully drawn, Great humor, a lot of heart and passion. Definitely everything you want in a children's story and more. So go check those books out. One of my all-time favorite books I read in October was Star Wars Dark Disciple by, what's her name? Christy Golden. Or Gold, yeah, Golden. It was one of my favorites because it involved a character I really liked from Star Wars The Clone Wars television series, Asajj Ventress. It was a very dark story, as indicated by the title. The Jedi Council decides that some drastic measures need to be taken to stop Count Dooku, and they send one of their Jedi Masters to find and train with Asajj Ventress, who used to be Count Dooku's apprentice. She has since left that life behind, is working as a mercenary, or as a bounty hunter, I should say. But she always has wanted revenge, and so she and him go on this adventure, this quest, and it leads them both to very dark depths and to some of the essence of the dark side. It changes them both. They both find themselves going through some changes and find themselves in an unexpected love atmosphere, like they fall for each other. It's really well written. I love the story. I love the espionage aspect of it. And I love how you don't even know what's happening with each character until the very last page. It's a very well written book. Highly recommend it. Star Wars Dark Disciple, definitely a must read. This next one I was contacted by the author specifically to read, and I'm glad he did. It's called Red Death by Jeff Aldabeth. It is a dystopian fantasy kind of book. Takes place in a world where the world is divided into tribes, and some are more advanced than others. Pretty much the Red Death is something that every child fears. Most, if not all, children know that you don't really grow up to be older than a certain age, and for centuries this one settlement known as Eden has been the most highly technologically advanced civilization, and they believe that they are doing the work of God, and one of the members of this tribe soon learns that not all is as it seems, and they have to go to adventure and discover the way the other tribes work in order to stop a deadly threat to the entire world. It really analyzes the religious fervor that can sometimes grip people, and it really shows that sometimes religion can drive people to do things that they never thought possible. This is a great story, great fantasy, and highly recommend it if you love young adult fantasy dystopian novels. Must read. This next book I read was called Retaliation. This is the second book in the Mindbreaker trilogy from author Marina Epley. So if you guys haven't read the first book yet, I highly recommend you read both these books. The Mindbreaker trilogy. This is a dystopian novel, basically in a world where people with abilities known as mind breakers, have gained psychic level abilities, telekinesis, all that kind of stuff. And whatchamacallit, the second book picks up where the first book left off, where the protagonist, Rex, is now the leader of the rebellion, pretty much, of Retaliation. But not everyone in Retaliation has his same viewpoint. Some of them are just as merciless as the shadow government group hunting them, led by his nemesis, Captain Wheeler. So, lots of intrigue, lots of character development. This is definitely a book meant for character development. You really get to see what happens when a specific group of people are targeted and threatened by political powers, and the way it can turn the best of men into animals in order to fight for survival. It's grueling, it's dark, but it's definitely a must-read. So go check out Retaliation by Marina Eppley today. The next book I read was The Paper Magician, the first in the Paper Magician series by Charlie N. Holmberg. A young woman named Sione Twill learns that she is set to become a paper magician. She's always wanted to be something else, a smelter or, a glass magician, something. But she has been chosen to be the next paper magician. However, what she believes to be a boring trade will soon become a harrowing adventure when her mentor, Thane, is attacked and his heart is stolen, and she must go into the depths of his heart to fight an evil magician known as an Excisor, who deals in dark flesh magic. This is definitely a dark, young adult fantasy kind of novel. A lot darker than I think people would think from a title called The Paper Magician. But this is such a fun read. I love the time period that they explore. It's in the early 20th century. I love when the books like this don't focus on an angsty teenager. This is a young girl who, she's frustrated with life, but she doesn't let her get her down, and she continues to work hard. And she goes on this adventure and soon discovers things about herself and her mentor that she never thought possible. This is definitely a great first installment in the Paper Magician series. I can't wait to read the rest. So, finally, in one of the creepiest dark fiction novels I've read this year in 2016, I give you Where the Dead Ones Play, a supernatural horror by Kyle M. Scott. This story focuses on an author whose town is in the grips of hysteria when a young girl goes missing, and soon he learns that his child may be the next target. But not everything is as it seems. Some of the townspeople have secrets of their own, and the villain of the story might not be who you expect. There's lots of twists and turns, even until the very last page you're like, what just happened? It's very shocking. It's beautifully written, great imagery used throughout the book. In 1 second you're imagining a peaceful, beautiful, woodland setting, and then in the next you're faced with one of the most vile, disgusting creatures you can imagine. It's just great imagery throughout. Definitely recommend it if you love dark fiction. Where the Dead Ones Play, a supernatural horror by Kyle M. Scott, was the last book I read in November, and I definitely recommend it. Now I'm going to talk about some of the books I read in December. The first one I want to talk about is a book I just recently got, thanks as an early Christmas gift from my sister. William Shakespeare's Star Wars by Ian Docher. I can't tell you much about it other than this is pretty much Shakespeare's version of Star Wars. Pretty much this is the retelling of the first Star Wars movie, Star Wars A New Hope, and it's written in iambic pentameter, and it's amazing. I love Shakespeare and I love Star Wars. This is a must-read. It's written like one of his plays. The next two books I've actually talked about before, I just haven't gotten a chance to read them yet. Forbidden, which is the first in the Tempted series, #1 by Celine Charles. Involves a young woman whose father is a carny. She's been involved in the carny life and she's trying to escape it. Meets a dark, mysterious figure. Typical young adult teenage stuff. Sounds interesting. And then Vampire Addiction. The Vampires of Athens, Book 1 by Eva Poehler. Seems pretty interesting and combines a little bit of history and Greek mythology with the vampire legend. Seems like a lot of fun, so thought I'd go for it. The next book I want to talk about is The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchinson. This is definitely a thriller, killer kind of book. A garden is discovered filled with butterflies, but the butterflies are young women, tattooed to look just like their namesake. Very disturbing. The FBI is brought in, and agents Victor and Brandon are tasked with piecing the case together. They bring in a survivor, but it turns out there's a deeper mystery than anyone thought possible, and she has to kind of tell what happened in this butterfly garden and what the killer was like, what this deeply disturbed killer was like. Sounds very creepy. Gotten great reviews. Definitely something I want to check out. So, there you go. And then the final two you guys know is Beating the Beast by Marie Laprince de Beaumont. Sounds like a mouthful with that author's name, but it's the original Beauty and the Beast story. You guys know I love that story, so I'm going to read that. And then A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens I'm going to read for Christmas. So there you guys go. That was my October-November book wrap-up and my December TBR. I hope you guys enjoyed that. In the comments below, tell me what books you plan to read this month and what books you just finished reading. Leave your comments down below. If you guys enjoyed this video for Vlogmas Day 4, please give this video a big thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could like and subscribe to this channel. And make sure you click the eye in the sky for today's recommended videos, playlists, and more. Thanks for watching, and I will see you tomorrow for a brand new video. Long days and pleasant nights, my friends.